Okay, thanks for joining me. So in this practical demonstration task, we're going to be covering LV04 task 3, which is braking systems. So this is just to give you a bit of a recap of everything that we covered within our lesson. Obviously it's going to vary with your particular vehicle that you worked on, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a run through about what we did. Okay, so in terms of the braking system task, which is LV04 task 3, this is split into 3 different sections. So if we make our way over to the computer screen, so this is ePortfolio, so this is the way that you'll see it on your practical task sheet. We're actually split into 3 tasks. So we've got remove and refit brake pads and disc thickness to be and run out to be measured. So we're going to do that. We're then going to remove and refit a brake caliper, and of course after we remove and refit a brake caliper, we would always then finally bleed the brakes. Okay, so as we start our task, we're always going to need our vehicle information, which you took from the job. If not, we've got the vehicle information on our Teams page. Okay, so let's take a little look at the vehicle itself. Okay, so before we start any practical tasks, we would always do our risk assessment. So we're in a classroom now, so the surroundings around me I'm happy with and we're safe to work in. However, we'll always make sure we wear our PPE. So in terms of PPE for this task, I'm going to wear my steel-toe caps boots. And again, why am I wearing that? That's to stop things falling on my feet, such as a heavy brake disc possibly. Okay, I'm going to wear my overalls, barrier cream and my goggles, and of course my ID badge for safeguarding. Okay, so as we're going to start, my glasses are now on. Okay, so let's take a little look. So here in front of me now, I've got a braking system rig. So this is a full braking system of a vehicle broken down onto and bolted to a rig. Okay, so we can get really in there and have a look at what's going on. So, like we said before, the task is to remove and refit a brake caliper, pads and a disc, and then we've got to measure all this up. So if you come on round to the brake disc, the first thing I'm going to do is start off with my micrometer. Okay, so there's a different tool that we could possibly use, which is our vernier caliper, which we've used before. So if you think back, we used our vernier caliper to measure our brake pads, but we used a micrometer to measure our brake disc. Now, we're going to get a more accurate reading with our micrometer because we can hook around the disc and measure it at its thinnest point where the brake pads are making contact. So if we can have a look at the measurement that we've taken with this micrometer, that actually comes out, it's at 18.25 millimeters. Okay, but one thing to always consider and remember when we're working with micrometers is this is a precision measuring tool, it is not a clamp. So we're literally going to take that up until you feel a slight bit of resistance, and that is it. That's our precision measurement taken. Okay, so now we've done that and I'm happy with that, and I've got my measurement for my task sheet. We're then going to have a look at this next tool, which is our DTI gauge. Okay, what's its real name? DTI gauge is a dial test indicator. Okay, so the way we work on a dial test indicator is we're going to take a measurement from a full revolution of our brake disc. So as you can see here, we've marked our brake disc as a starting point, and I'm going to rotate my brake disc. Okay, now you'll notice before I started this was zeroed, and as I turn, this is going to tell me how much run out I have on my brake disc. Okay, so to put that simply, how much of warp that I have in this disc. Okay, so we make our way back to our starting point. Okay, now I measured that before and I got that to a 0.06 millimeter run out. Okay, so every single one of them lines is 0.0 millimeter. Okay, so my measurement is 0.06. Okay, that is my brake disc run out. Okay, so once I've completed this and I've got all my measurements, I would then put my disc back on. I would then put my pad hanger back on, my brake pads back in, and my brake caliper. Okay, once my brake caliper's on, I would always make sure that I've been through all the torque procedures that I would need to. So on this particular caliper and brake setup, I would have to torque up my brake pad hanger and my caliper itself using the 7mm Allen key bolts on the inside. Okay, once my brake pipe's back connected, okay, the last part of the task was to bleed the brakes. Okay, so this particular braking system, I'm going to opt to use what's known as the pedal pump method. So if you think back to the practical task when we did it, how we do that is we make sure that we fill up our brake fluid reservoir with the correct amount of brake fluid, and it has to be the correct specific brake fluid. And on this car, it is DOT4 brake fluid. Okay, so once we've got our reservoir filled up, we would then slowly pump the system until we've got the fluid down to our caliper. Okay, once we've got our caliper full of fluid, you're going to start to feel a little bit of resistance through that pedal. Okay, we would then connect an open-ended spanner, a pipe and a container to catch our waste fluid, and then we would crack off our bleed screw, Okay, and then we would use the pedal pump method, which is down, and as we push down, it's going to force fluid down that brake pipe and out the end of our bleed screw. Okay, we would then lock it off, back up, couple of pumps, back down, and we repeat that process until we get rid of all the air out of the system, and you're looking for a nice, firm, solid pedal. Okay. After that, we would always put our vehicle back on the brake rollers and test it in an MOT situation where we put it under maximum force just to make sure that our repair was done correctly and everything's working as it should before we hand it back to the customer. Okay, so that covers the 3 parts of the task that we did in the workshop. Okay, so if we look at our IMI task sheet, it's asking for certain technical data. Okay, now on this particular task, it's asking for our brake disc minimum thickness. Now on the Ford vehicle that this braking system was taken from, we've got a minimum thickness of 18 millimeters. Okay, we've got a maximum brake disc run out of allowance, which is a 0.1 millimeter. The brake fluid specification itself is .4. The minimum legal foot brake efficiency for this particular vehicle is 58%. The minimum legal parking brake efficiency on this particular vehicle is 16%. Okay. In terms of special tools used, including any calibration required, would always be our torque wrench, okay, and we would always check our sticker. A DTI gauge would be calibrated, micrometer and a vernier caliper, okay, and again they would normally have a sticker either on the device itself or the box it comes in to tell us that it's correctly calibrated. Okay, so that basically is a very quick summary of what you did in the workshop to complete your LV04 task 3 braking system. Okay, I hope you found that interesting and informative. Thank you very much.